Welcome to This Explainer. For years, we all thought AI was just going to be a helpful sidekick, right? Something to tweak a quick email or summarize a massive PDF. But if you look closely at the corporate workflows emerging in 2026, a massive structural shift is happening. We are officially entering the era of the digital assembly line, and it is completely reshaping business operations from the ground up.
So, what actually happens when AI stops being just an assistant and becomes your entire workforce? We're talking about the leap from static, human-triggered automation to dynamic, autonomous digital assembly lines. It's no longer about a human prompting a machine. It's about a machine coordinating a whole fleet of other machines. This is a huge leap from asking a chatbot to draft an email to watching a system manage complex, multi-step operations entirely on its own. Today, we're going to cover 5 main areas. 1. Meet your digital workforce. 2. Inside the assembly line. 3. Building the agent network. 4. Real-world industry shifts. And 5. Hidden risks and vulnerabilities.
All right, let's jump into section 1. Meet your digital workforce, the paradigm shift.
Think back to the early days of generative AI. We basically treated the model like an intern and dumped absolutely everything on its plate. You had a single, generalized AI struggling to handle an entire complex project by itself. It was a jack of all trades, but a master of none, right? And it would often hallucinate under the weight of too many instructions. Well, the new paradigm completely upends that. It relies on a sprawling, interconnected crew of highly specialized digital workers. Instead of one stressed-out robot, you have a network where each entity has a distinct role, very specific instructions, and access to dedicated tools, all collaborating seamlessly together. It's literally the difference between hiring one person to build an entire car and building a highly tuned factory floor.
Now, businesses aren't doing this just for the novelty. They are actively hunting for 5 critical outcomes. First off, they want end-to-end automation without humans having to click next at every single step. They're also drastically improving accuracy by deploying agents whose only job is to act as a harsh critic and catch errors. And the speed to value? It's staggering. We're talking about turning multi-day processing bottlenecks into minutes. Plus, this allows organizations to scale production massively without proportionately increasing their human headcount. But honestly, perhaps the most clever shift here is dynamic model routing to optimize costs. So instead of using a massively expensive heavy compute model for a simple sorting task, the system automatically routes the simple jobs to cheaper, smaller models. That saves the big brain only for the complex reasoning.
Let's move on to section 2. Inside the assembly line, the mechanics of MAS. Beneath the surface, this digital factory runs on a highly structured 5-step modular layer. It all starts with task decomposition, taking a massive corporate goal and shattering it into bite-sized subtasks. Then comes role-based execution, where specialized agents step up to claim those specific pieces. But obviously, they can't work in a vacuum, which is where standardized communication comes in, ensuring clean data handoffs. Sitting above all of this is the orchestration logic, basically the digital format monitoring the entire workflow. And finally, before anything goes back to a human, verification and filtering kicks in. This is where compliance agents ruthlessly review the outputs against corporate guidelines. This highly structured flow is exactly what keeps the entire operation from descending into pure chaos. To really ground this concept, picture how this coordinated execution actually plays out. You no longer ask one AI to write a report. Instead, you unleash a researcher agent that does absolutely nothing but scour the web and internal databases for raw data. It then hands that mess of data to an analyst agent whose sole purpose is to find the signal in the noise and structure those findings. Only then does a writer agent take that structured logic and craft the final narrative. Nobody is doing everything. Everyone is a master of their specific domain. This hyper-specialization is exactly what unlocks the crazy efficiency we are seeing today.
But you might be wondering, how do you prevent these agents from playing a massive game of telephone where information just gets lost? Well, the secret is the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. Think of it as the standardized shipping container for the AI world. Without it, your researcher might hand off brilliant data, but the analyst wouldn't understand the original context or the end goal. MCP provides a uniform language, ensuring that as data changes hands across the assembly line, the critical context of why they are doing the work is perfectly preserved. It literally binds the entire workforce together.
Bringing us to section 3, building the agent network, from blueprint to production. You can build the smartest digital workers in the world, but if they don't know your specific business, they're kind of useless, right? This is where the knowledge fabric comes in. It's the foundational nervous system connecting your proprietary internal databases, document repositories, and live company streams. This is what grounds your agents in reality. If your agents aren't plugged into this unified data layer, they are essentially flying blind, just guessing at answers instead of relying on real-time, factual enterprise intelligence. This fabric is what takes a generic AI and turns it into your specific corporate employee. Transitioning a traditional workflow into one of these autonomous systems isn't just flipping a switch. It requires a really rigorous pathway. It begins by identifying the perfect targets, those high-volume, rule-bound processes that absolutely drain your employees' souls. Next, teams have to map the process, documenting every single microscopic decision node. Then comes the art of agent role design, where you craft the boundaries and specific tool sets for each digital worker. Once orchestrated, the most critical step is guardrail integration. This is where security teams inject firewalls and redactors to protect sensitive data. And finally, everything gets thrown into a simulated sandbox for aggressive pre-deployment testing. You have to audit the costs and catch any hallucinations before they actually hit production. It is a massive undertaking, for sure. Now, with all this automation, you might be thinking, where do humans actually fit into the picture? Well, we aren't removed, we're elevated. Enter the human-in-the-loop checkpoints. These are hard-coded manual review gates built directly into the assembly line. For high-stakes decisions, like approving a massive financial transfer or a highly sensitive medical summary, the digital line physically pauses. A human operator has to step in, review the logic, and hit approve before the workflow is allowed to continue. This ensures accountability remains firmly in human hands right where it matters most. Okay, let's look at Section 4, Real-World Industry Shifts, the Massive Scaling Effect. This isn't just theory anymore. These specialized crews are already replacing slow human coordination across massive sectors. In finance, loan processing is being revolutionized by agents that autonomously check eligibility and instantly sniff out fraud. In software development, digital assembly lines are now planning features, writing the code, and reviewing their own pull requests. Over in healthcare administration, agents are handling complex scheduling while cross-referencing medical histories to draft clinical summaries. And out in the supply chain, autonomous negotiator agents are actively bargaining for better shipping rates and routing to cut emissions, all without a human ever picking up a phone. It is actively changing how these entire industries function. Deploying this orchestration platform sets off a fascinating chain reaction that fundamentally alters what it means to actually work at a company. On day one, the immediate relief is super obvious. Manual data entry just vanishes. By month 6, a deeper cultural shift happens. Humans, freed from repetitive coordination, are forced to pivot entirely into strategy, creative design, and critical review. By year 1, the processing capacity of the business scales so drastically that the very shape of the org chart changes. And looking 3 years out, the enterprise transforms into an AI-first ecosystem where the primary job of a human manager is to oversee, coach, and direct an expansive digital workforce. The sheer math of that year 1 phase is what keeps executives awake at night. Because these digital agents don't get tired, they don't take coffee breaks, and they definitely don't clock out at 5 p.m. A business can suddenly process thousands of concurrent, highly complex customer requests simultaneously. It completely shatters the old human bottleneck limits. You're scaling operational throughput exponentially without adding a single desk to an office building. When you can hit numbers in the thousands instantly, your entire business model shifts. Finally, let's jump into Section 5, Hidden Risks and Vulnerabilities, the sobering reality.
But as you can imagine, with unprecedented scale comes unprecedented and sometimes kind of bizarre vulnerabilities. Take the agentic loop problem. Without flawless configuration, agents can easily get trapped in infinite communication loops. Just imagine 2 incredibly polite but very confused digital workers endlessly asking each other for clarification on a task they don't understand how to exit. While they are locked in this infinite argument, they completely stall the workflow, and worse, they rapidly drain your cloud computing budget by racking up massive modeled token expenses by the second. Your compute bill literally skyrockets because your agents are stuck in a meeting that never ends.
Beyond runaway costs, you have catastrophic security and compliance gaps. First is the nightmare of distributed tracing. Usually, when a traditional system fails, you just check the logs. But when an error cascades across 5 independent, reasoning AI agents, IT teams struggle to find who actually made the mistake. Second, because these agents need access to your internal tools to do their jobs, they open up massive new vectors for prompt injection attacks and data leaks.
And finally, if strict gateway filters are missing, these highly efficient, uncoordinated networks can brilliantly figure out ways to achieve their goals by accidentally bypassing your strict regulatory frameworks. It is an absolute governance nightmare if it's not properly locked down. And then there is the sheer physical strain on your infrastructure. You see, human workers naturally throttle a company's system utilization. We read things, we type slowly, we take a moment to think before executing a command. Autonomous agents, on the other hand, operate at the absolute speed of compute. If they aren't artificially throttled, they can trigger sudden, massive traffic spikes, hitting your internal APIs with thousands of requests a second. That can absolutely vaporize a company's legacy internal databases. It's effectively like hooking up a massive fire hose to a tiny garden hose system. So, the shift from human-triggered automation to autonomous, multi-agent assembly lines isn't some distant sci-fi future. It is being deployed in corporate environments right now. It brings staggering, unprecedented efficiency, but alongside incredibly sobering risks. As we hand over the keys to these powerful ecosystems, every enterprise must answer one final provocative question. Are we truly ready to manage a digital workforce? Or are we just building a system that will eventually manage us? Think about that the next time you log in. Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer.